Well, it's been a busy week here, but the playoffs continue, and this time we turn our attention from the EFL to the National League as we get underway in an elongated playoff campaign, beginning with the Eliminators taking place between the four sides that finish between 4th and 7th. They play in one-legged ties for the right to play a semi-final against the teams that finish 2nd and 3rd. This season is York City and Forest Green that are waiting, and one of them will be hoping to get to the final and win at Wembley and join Barnet in the EFL next season. If you've missed any of our playoff shows so far, covering all three divisions of the EFL, you can find them up in the eye above. I'm sure there'll be plenty more and manager specials to come from the Championship over the next few weeks. But today, we turn our attention to two massive eliminators in the National League. Three sides that have very recently been in EFL. All four of them have been EFL sides at one point, and a few sides looking to build on momentum towards the end of the season. We start on Wednesday night, the 14th of May, with Oldham Athletic versus FC Halifax Town. And this is where things get interesting, because quite often we talk about these games, about head-to-head records, about stars of the season, people who could potentially turn up and do something special. But this is a game where actually both sides will probably be pretty happy to be where they are, because Halifax are coming into an away game, which would normally be the disadvantage for finishing lower. Yes, there were only 3 points between them in the season, but away from home, Halifax are the only team in the playoffs with a better record on the road than at home. They picked up 38 of their 70 points away from home this season. They've got a better defensive record away from home than they've got at home, and they've got a better goal scoring record away from home than they've got at home. So this is a really interesting one, because Halifax are by far the lowest scoring team of those in the playoffs this year. In fact, they're actually the joint second lowest scorers in the division after Ebbsfleet, who finished bottom. But because they've been fairly solid defensively and nicked a lot of one-goal wins, they've been able to sneak their way into the playoffs. That puts them in good stead to face an Oldham side who have pressure on them. We predicted them in the playoffs pre-season, but they've just drawn too many games this year. Similar story for them and Southend that we'll talk about in a bit. Unlike Halifax, they've got goal scorers in the team. Mike Fondop has popped up with a lot this year. Halifax top scorer on 7 goals, but we did watch them win the FA Trophy at Wembley last year, so we know on the big stage they can produce. And that will be the question of Oldham. A very decent home record this year, 11 victories and only 6 defeats. They're also pretty solid at the back at home. However, of those teams with the top home records, they are by far the lowest scorers with 35 from their 23 games. That doesn't quite reflect the story, though, when you look at the team's head-to-head record this year, because the teams have actually played 3 times against each other. The first meeting a 1-1 draw at Halifax, despite Oldham going down to 10 men. But the 2 games that have been played at Boundary Park already have been very comfortable Oldham wins. A 4-2 win in the FA Cup, where Oldham raced into a 4-1 half-time lead, and a comfortable 2-0 victory at home to Halifax just, 6 weeks or so ago in the Vanarama National League. So this is a very tough one to call on paper, but everything we mentioned about the Halifax away record, the Halifax defensive record on the road, is completely wiped out by how they've done in their 2 games in League and Cup at Oldham this season, where they've conceded 6 goals and they've not been able to pick up results. So it does become a very tough one. Oldham, of course, on paper, the favourites, the bigger side, the more fluent scorers, and finished a place and 3 points higher this year. But I don't think it's going to be quite as convincing as that. There was part of me that thought, do you know what, I'm going to go for a really comfortable win. But I just don't think the playoffs play out that way. So often we've seen the away sides from sort of 6th and 7th pop up with surprises in these eliminators. This year, I'm not sure it's going to happen in this one. I'm going to go for Oldham Athletics and nick it. We have talked about some of the key players for each team. Fondop, of course, being the key one for Oldham. Halifax, as we mentioned, not got goal scorers. Did have a poor away day again at Wealdstone last time out on the final day of the season, a result that had big implications at the bottom. And Halifax, while not having some of those standout players, you might say, that some of the others in the playoffs have got, always seem to get the maximum out of the team and are generally fairly consistent. Oldham came in off a relatively comfortable game against Ebbsfleet United, who are already down and by far the worst team in the league this year. And they've got that experience in the squad as well. The likes of Joe Garner up front. Jordan Rossiter has played around at the lower levels as well. And Fondop came off the bench for half an hour too. It is a squad that is littered with more experience. It's got quality. It's got leadership in the likes of Raglan in defence as well. I think Oldham will just have enough. It's one of those games that could go either way. Halifax, you feel, have to make it fairly tight, fairly compact, keep it low scoring. If Oldham can get an early goal, race into a lead, you feel it could be a comfortable night for them. I think it might be a little bit more tense than some are predicting. Part of me wanted to go very comfortable based on their head-to-heads this year. I'm going to go for Oldham to nick it in a more tense affair with a 2-1 victory against Halifax Town. And that will put them into the semi-finals the following week. As we move on to Thursday night and a game between two recent EFL sides that have both had their problems off the pitch, it is Rochdale versus Southend United, two teams that we predicted to be up in this mix this year. Both of them had interesting finishes to the season, but both of them get in at 6 points separating them. Rochdale by far the highest scorers of the four teams in action, and Southend, to be fair, have snuck in pretty late on with a good run towards the end of the season, unbeaten in their final four, pipping Gateshead and Altrincham, who both had some tough times, and that crucial draw away at Gateshead on the final day ensured they finished a point above them and got the last playoff place. Now, Kevin Maher has done a fantastic job at Southend. There was a lot talked about the trials and tribulations last season, the incidents off the pitch, the ownership battle and all of that. He did a wonderful job to lead them away with that deduction and get them almost in the mix for the playoffs. And this season, he's gone one better and snuck them in 7th place. For Rochdale, a very interesting season. 4th place, a solid one for sure. And they have found some winning form, particularly at home in recent weeks. A final day defeat at Braintree won't do much to get them in confident form for the playoffs. But to be fair, I've got one gripe with Rochdale. And that is that when they last had a big game, and a game that was decisive to their season, which was a big one in the FA Trophy semi-final, they lost it against Spennymoor Town from a division below late on. Now, Rochdale could see that as a positive because if they won that game, if they got through, they would have been playing in a Wembley final on Sunday, and then they would have had, 4 days to recover for this one. As it is, they're not going to be taking part in non-league finals day, which I'm going to be at. You'll be able to find all the clips up there in the eye above. But it does mean that when they come up in those big occasions late on, they've often found a way to throw it away. Now, they're in a very good position. They've done brilliantly in the league, and we should judge them positively based on that. They've got experienced players. They've got quality in the squad. Ian Henderson's still going strong for them all those years later. To be fair, Devontae Rodney's had a really good season as well. They've got attacking quality. Harvey Gilmore, a player that's played at this level. Experience at the back with the likes of Ebanks Lendl too. It's a good Rochdale side. It's a solid squad. But the same can be said for Southend. Flying fullback Gus Scott Morris has been a goal machine for the most part this season. Nick Hayes played at Wembley multiple times last season. They've got quality going forward in the likes of Macaulay Bonn, who's played at a higher level, Tom Hopper, Ollie Coker, etc. There's so many players that have got experience in the squad. So it does mean this is hard to call because you've got two established National League sides that both want to return to the EFL with very good players in their ranks. Two good managers as well. So then we go to the head-to-head record and what's happened this season, because Southend United versus Rochdale has been very hard to call. Southend won 1-0 at Rochdale back in October, and then when they played in February, it was a 1-1 draw with very little to separate them. And if we look at their records over the whole season, Rochdale obviously have home advantage. They don't draw many at home. They've picked up 13 wins, had the 4th best home record in the National League this year, 43 goals scored, and just 21 conceded. Not a bad effort at all. But Southend on the road, a very different proposition. Scored and conceded just about one a game, and 10 draws from their 23 matches. They're hard to beat on the road, but they don't pick up that many victories. So based on the fact that Rochdale very rarely draw at home, and Southend quite often draw on the road, and the fact they drew their last game against each other, how on earth do you call this one? Well, I'm not going to sit on the fence as such. I'm going to say that Southend United's draw record will be the more important, and that these sides will play out a very evenly matched 1-1 draw. And that means we'll have the law of extra time and penalties. And you know what? I'm going for a tense penalty shootout. Southend United, I think, might cause a surprise on the road. They're going to pip Rochdale on penalty kicks. Two experienced attacks coming up against each other. But how many of them will still be on the pitch after 120 minutes? I'm going for a 1-1 draw in a 90-minute game. And I'm going for Southend to squeak through to the semis on penalties. So with that out of the way, let's have a quick recap of what I've gone for this midweek in the two National League Playoff Eliminators. for the 24-25 season. I've gone for Oldham Athletic to squeak past Halifax with a 2-1 victory at home, despite Halifax's excellent away record in the National League this year. And I've also gone for Southend and Rochdale to play out a very tightly matched game with a 1-1 draw at Rochdale, followed by penalty kicks, where I think Southend United may cause heartbreak for the home side and sneak through to the semi-finals. But those are just my predictions for the two National League playoff eliminators. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, give us your predictions for these two matches. If you beat or match my overall prediction score, you will get a shout out when we return next weekend to look ahead to the semi-finals, which take place next midweek. I'm hoping now we live local to it, I'll be able to go to the York game as well. In the meantime, though, you can find all our other playoff episodes up in the eye above. We've got semi-final previews for League 1 and League 2, as well as the second leg of the Championship playoff semi-finals up there as well. We're also at non-league finals day, so make sure you come and check out the clips from that. Those are up in the eye above too, looking at the FA Trophy and FA Vars finals. For now, though, I hope your team goes well next week. Good luck to all four taking part, and I'll see you again here next weekend as we look ahead to the semi-finals in the Vanarama National League playoffs.